think one of the most, I put this at the last, item in my second book in the timeline was Instagram was created, and I feel like, what does Instagram have to do jiu-jitsu? I'm like, everything. Instagram changed everything.
Yeah.
Instagram became the grand master of jiu-jitsu. Now, there's a red belt in Brazil called Mansour, who was technically the 10th degree. He was one of Helio's original black belts. But I don't think he's in charge of jiu-jitsu. In fact, I don't think the IBJJF is in charge of jiu-jitsu. I think it's the internet. I think it's this conglomeration of white belts and hustlers. They get together and they keep pushing for like this agenda or that agenda, and they're battling. So I think jiu-jitsu lives a moment of chaos because everything's all over the place, right? No one's really agreeing on what they're doing. People can't even agree on what jiu-jitsu is. You ask 20 different black belts, you got to get 20 different answers. It doesn't happen in judo. It doesn't happen in wrestling. But it's a big problem in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and people are making so much money, they don't seem to care. Like, the problems are just screaming at me, like, guys, you don't see where this is going. Like, I think there are major problems with this. But I've tried to argue to, unify and create something more cohesive and trying to go back to the old ways, maybe take a step back, reorganize, tactical retreat for the art, and then move forward with a new vision and something a little more solid. We have some major problems in the very foundation of the art. And but the money's too good. People don't care. People tend to look at money as the metric of success, and immediately maybe that is, for individuals, but for the art itself and its longevity, I think that's very short-sighted.
I think what you said about making money is relevant and it's valid. One thing I also saw at a martial arts center in South Florida about 2 weeks ago, I met a person and he got injured by being stupid. He was partying, and he shares this openly, and he injured himself, I think his shoulder. And all of his friends that he was doing jiu-jitsu with in Brazil surpassed him, and they were all getting purple belts when he was still a blue belt. And he felt really bad. And so they said, hey, why don't you come back in here? So he rehabbed his shoulder. He got back in. He's a black belt now. But it gave him a job. It gave him the chance to come to the United States, open up a center, pour out his heart, pour out his energy, develop a school. And so this idea of, finding your career path through jiu-jitsu, I mean, think of how many people around the world had a job that was rotten when they were 16 or 28, and they get into jiu-jitsu, they really love it, and they say, I want to do this. I want to be around people. I want to get my sweat on, get my coaching on, and put belts around people's waist. So share with me your thoughts about this lifestyle of being a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school owner.
Those are amongst the positives of the democratization process, right? The commercialization, the popularization, whatever you want to call it. Those are amongst the benefits. It's brought meaning and to the lives of many people. It's changed people's lives. It's brought mental health to a lot of people. But I think we ought to remember why it is that these people walk in through the door. We're still living off the coattails of the credibility that Royce Gracie gave us in '93 and the early, what I call the second wave of jiu-jitsu practitioners, the people that introduced me to jiu-jitsu, right? Those guys were, in my opinion, the best fighters in the world at the time because they had this concern with the reality of combat. So Brazilian jiu-jitsu came with a lot of credibility, so much so that I think it posed a threat to a lot of martial artists out there who immediately started adding grappling to their programs. We just had the Judo Federation, the IJF, modified their rule set to allow more time on the ground. It's happened a few years ago. I mean, wrestlers are learning guillotines and arm bars. Like, there's the crossover between wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is huge. I see karate gyms. We have a karate gym here in Las Vegas that has one of our instructors teaching there, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because they want to learn the ground. So it really shook the martial arts world's foundation. And because jiu-jitsu, it was specializing in an aspect of the game that most martial arts were neglected almost entirely, which was grappling, right? Or submission game of grappling, at least. I worry that by the thing about popularization is that you have the standard up high. So those of you who are just listening, I got like my hand up high, right? And then you have the people right below, the average. You either have to raise the people to the top, or you have to lower the bar for the majority, right? For people. The question is, which one do we do? Now, we can do a bit of both and be somewhere in the middle, but there's a lot of decision making that goes on at the top decision making of any gym or even at higher ranks of the arts leadership, is that you have to make the decisions. Are you going to water down the product to achieve greater numbers, hence popularization? Or are you going to keep the standards high and maintain credibility for purposes of longevity? Right? I joke in my second book that Joe Rogan is to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu what Elvis Presley was to karate. Right? He made it immensely popular, but that also started a process of karate losing credibility when it was in every shopping mall across the country, and next thing you know, you get 12-year-old black belts. And I don't mean to disrespect karate. I know some legit karate fighters, they'll knock you out. And I think that I worry about that, because I think in some ways Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has become what it used to criticize, and I don't like it. I'm not attacking the art I love. It's just like, if you want to solve a problem, the first thing you got to do is acknowledge it. You can't, you go to an AA meeting, the first thing you got to do is admit you're an alcoholic. Yeah. There's a reason they do that. It's an effective method to solving a huge problem, right? We have a problem in our hands, and I think we're kind of going that direction. Most people don't care. They're making money. They don't care. It bothers me, because what was precious about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to me were precisely the values that are being lost. Whereas the money was a side effect. I like the money. I get paid well to do what I do, and I do like money. I'm not stupid. I'm not a hypocrite either. But it's not why I do what I do. It's not what I was dreaming about as a teenager. It's not why I became obsessed with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's not what I'm dreaming about before I go to bed.